All right. Hello, beautiful people. My name is Erica, and this is our first episode of Real Talk. Now, Real Talk is where we come online and I interview who have been inspiring to me, as well as inspiring to others. And whether it is whatever topic that we may be focusing on, this is what this interview is all about. So last month in January, I had a theme that focused on entrepreneurship. And one individual that came to mind of who to interview was Jessica Starks. Jessica and I met way back when in about 2014. And since then, she has grown and progressed in so many assets that I just had to get her online. So this evening, she's going to share with us what does she do as an entrepreneur, her life as an author, and how she's grown from the little Jessica I met back in 2014 up until now. So everybody give Jessica a round of applause. Yay, Jessica! Yay! Okay, so Jessica, I'm so happy to have you here. Me and my goodness, craziness. I'm so grateful you're here with us this evening. And I just want you to first and foremost share with us who you are and what you are all about. Just share with us who you are, where you're from. Let's start with
Well, as she said, my name is Jessica Starks. I'm from a really small town in Mississippi called Pontotoc. Um, and I'm basically a serial entrepreneur. I'm a writer. I'm an author. Um, I just like being creative, and I'm excited to do this interview because, like you said, we've known each other for so long now, and it's just seeing the both of us grow and evolve and develop. So I'm excited to be talking to you today.
that. Oh, yay, 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 yay. I'm so happy as well. Okay, so let's just talk about how we met. Oh my goodness. So it really started with, I believe I would edit your articles or things that you would write. And then before you know it, you begin to edit my work. So let's talk about that. Let's have a flashback moment when we first met.
So let's see, back in 2014. So I might have been like a freshman or a sophomore in college, and we both were working for Love Girls. I think you were there before me though, I believe. And I just kind of I came on as a writer, and like you were saying, you were my editor, so we didn't know anything about each other. We didn't know. I didn't know what you looked like. You know what I looked like. We didn't know nothing. And then I'm trying to think because I know after kind of Love Girls, like our times with Love Girls kind of ended. I think we just kind of kept each other's contact info, and then when I think we're starting like your writing journey and everything. That's kind of when we reconnected, and we've just kind of been in touch ever since.
Wow, beautiful. Yes, I remember. That is true. Wow. Ah, time moves by so fast. So fast. Oh my goodness. Okay, so one thing that I definitely commend you of is that you, like, from one stop, you didn't stop there. You continued to move. And so let's talk about when we began to connect. I believe, like you said, after we stepped away both from Love Girls, once we did that, we both began to go down our own avenues. You said you were a freshman in college. Myself, I was actually a senior in college. And so I'm looking at like my entire life after, December. So I recall get interested in starting a blog. And from that blog came Refresh the Magazine. And I remember just reaching out to you and I was like, hey, Jess, would you like to be a writer? And so I believe during that time, around 2016, that's when you and I began to even become closer. And I began to see you through your writing. And so something that stood out was just like your story. So would you mind just sharing a little bit about your story? And in doing so, your encounter with Christ. So I believe you were sharing a little bit about your life in one of the first articles that you shared, and then how that situation connected with Christ. So however you want to flow with it, just share a little bit about your backstory.
Okay, so well, yeah, like you were saying, started writing for your magazine, and it took me a minute to kind of figure out what my story was,
Mhm.
because I know for me, I was a late bloomer. So a lot of stuff that most people probably went through, I didn't go through till maybe I was 18,
Okay.
which kind of led up to, I think, the first thing that I had written for you, which was kind of about like a relationship that I had gotten in, and it just really changed like the way that I saw myself and the way that I just kind of saw like relationships with other people, and going through all the mess that was that relationship. It kind of led me more towards God and to really pay attention to, my identity and not worry about what other people thought of me or what other people expected of me, and just focus on, what is his plan for my life and how can I regroup from, like I said, that mess that was a relationship and push forward into everything that he had for me.
Okay, okay. So, just a little snippet, Jess. I would love for you to explain a little bit about the topic of relationships. I know this interview is talking, we're focused on entrepreneurship, but I just can't let it fly by. We're in the month of February. A lot of love is going around. Everybody wants to be in some form of something. And so I feel like sometimes, we get into this stage of I want to be with somebody. I have to have my soulmate. It's very important to do so. And I don't believe there's any problem with having that want, or feeling that need. But I would just love to hear from your perspective on your thoughts on relationships, and how were you able to switch that mindset from I'm not sure how you were feeling before you got into the relationship that you were in, but how have you how have you managed to, I guess, switch your mindset? I'm sure now, I'm not sure if you're in a relationship now, but possibly, your mindset has changed. Your main focus is what I'm saying is not on the relationship. Your main focus is on when that time comes, he'll come. So how were you able to switch that mindset? And what would you say to individuals who possibly feel like it's impossible for them to do that?
So now, granted, it's not that easy.
Yeah,
It took me a minute because, like I said, after it ended, I kind of had like an identity crisis because I'm just like, okay, who am I after this kind of thing? And like I know the biggest thing for me that I learned is that even though, like you said, relationships are great to have, but you need to have that relationship with yourself too. So, like I know for me again, I was younger, so I was still kind of figuring out my way and figuring out what I wanted to do. And I think I didn't give myself that time to really accept myself. And I'm thinking, okay, if they accept me, it's okay. But you have to kind of have that acceptance of yourself first. And then I think too, a lot of that is building your relationship with God because He's really the one that can tell you who you are because He made you. You know what I mean? And He can kind of guide you in your relationships so you don't waste time because that was a big waste of time. I'm like, if I just would have listened, I wouldn't even have to go through it. So I would just say, really stay in your word and really pay attention to what God is trying to tell you. And that, that love for yourself is gonna build because even now, like for me, you know, relationships, whether that's friendships, business relationships, whatever, they'll come and go. But I know I always got myself and I always got him. So I'm not just so like, oh, I gotta have this, gotta have that. But you gotta get to that point where you're content, at this time and where you're at. And that's kind of me, right now too. Like I'm just kind of focused on building. which would be, you know, like with my businesses, still building on myself and learning myself. And, you know, when the time is right, it'll happen.
Okay, okay. I love that. I love that. Building on yourself, building on yourself. Beautiful. Okay, so let's get to the nitty gritty. All right, let's get to the nitty gritty. So, entrepreneurship. So, as I stated earlier, January, that was the main focus, the main theme on my journey to refresh. And so I was able to connect with a lot of entrepreneurs. But again, you stood out, and I was just like, I have to interview Jet and see, just hear her story because I haven't even heard like all of your story. And so I would just like for you to share. What do you do? What do you do as an entrepreneur and share your story? Like, how did this all begin? How did this turn into entrepreneurship?
I feel like just what don't I do at this point? Um, well, I started this kind of journey. I was 17. I was a senior in high school, and ever since I can remember, I knew I wanted to be a writer. So it was never anything that I had to figure out what I wanted to do. Like I always knew I was gonna write in some form. But when I was in high school, I just knew, okay, I might write kind of creatively. So I might, you know, write poems or things like that, you know. Um, and I'm trying to think how I got started. So there was a platform way back in the day called Yahoo Voices. And that's kind of how I got my start as like a freelance writer. And it, like I said, was a platform through Yahoo, and you could go in, you could submit a story, and if it was approved, it would be published like on Yahoo's website, and you could get money for it, but I mean, you know, you ain't getting like all kinds of money for it. It's
Okay.
literally per view, so you know, I'm not making that much, but hey, I'm just happy that I'm writing something, you know. So I started out there, and then I think by the time I got to my freshman year in high school, when I got like my first uh, kind of big gig, and it was basically like a gossip blog site. And the funny thing about that was I worked there for a while, but you know, I'm going to school, getting used to being a freshman, all that stuff. And they wound up letting me go because they were like, well, you don't write enough. And so that crushed me because I'm like, you know, I'm trying to go to school and I'm trying to do all this stuff. And so it really made me reconsider if, you know, is this what I'm really cut out for? Is this what I'm meant to do? So, you know, I talked to my parents and stuff about it, and they was just like, you know, just regroup, take a break, and then, you know, if it's really what you want to do, just come back, you know, jump back in later. So I think after that, I got a job. Oh, that's when I started with Love Girls because they reached out to me on Twitter about that, and that was random. So I was like, okay, maybe there's hope, you know. And then that kind of led to kind of a slew of just different writing jobs and different genres. Because, like I said, I always thought I'm gonna write poetry. I might write a few like, you know, papers or you know things like that. But I wound up, I wrote more about like pop culture. I was writing about fitness. I was writing about technology. I kind of just had a period in college where I was just getting all kinds of experience, and I wound up. I was writing magazines, newspapers, blog posts. I kind of was just a little bit of everywhere. So that experience gave me the time to realize, okay, what kind of writing do I want to do? So that's kind of how I learned, you know, I don't have to just be, you know, write creatively all the time. And I realized that I did like writing news stories and, you know, writing for magazines and things like that. So that was kind of a really pivotal period for me. And then graduating from college, I went to a community college. I had planned to go to university, but the Lord said no because
Uh,
every time like my friends were going, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to this school, I'm going to that school, and I'm just like, I don't know where I'm going. And I was always the one, I always knew ahead of time where I was going because even when I was in high school, I knew where I was going. Like I knew I was going to a community college, and I knew which one I was going to. But for some reason, it was just like I couldn't figure out where I wanted to go. And then I was just praying, and I'm like, God, the semester's almost over. I'm about to graduate. I have no idea where I'm going. And he was just like, who told you you had to go anywhere? Okay, you know. And so that's when I decided I wasn't going to push forward. And then I just started getting more writing gigs because I was like, I know this is what I want to do. And that led me to a job where I was able to work for celebrity clients. And so basically, like, we write their blogs, we do their social media, we make memes, we do all kinds of stuff. And I got to the point where, you know, I had ranked pretty high in the company, but I wasn't happy. And it felt like I had worked there for like a year because it was just always something going on. And I think I was only there maybe 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a lot. And it just kind of got to the point where I'm like, okay, God, you know, if this isn't what you want for me, just let me, you know, just make a smooth exit and let me get out. So I wound up getting out of that. And that's when I decided to start my first business, which was JD Scribe. Um, so this was from when I graduated. So I graduated in 2013. So now JD Scribe starts in 2016. And the way that I started that kind of was inspiration from that job. So even though, like I said, I hated it when I was in it, it was a purpose for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of showed me that some of the tactics that they were using, I can bring that to my hometown and I can make them successful too. So that's kind of what formulated JD Scribes. And that originally I was just going to be writing. I wasn't going to do anything else. But then I wound up getting some new clients and they needed all kinds of stuff. Like, they needed their website managed, they needed ads run, they needed social media management. And I remember them asking me, you know, like, can you do this? Do you know about that? And, you know, in my head, I'm like, I know a little bit, but then and that happens to me all the time. It's just like, God is just like, well, just try it and see what happens.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, yeah, I know a little bit about social media management, you know. So I went in there, I tried it. It wound up really working out. And I took classes and, you know, just to learn even more things. And I kind of just taught myself through their company how to do a lot of stuff. And that's kind of what led to where we're at now, where we can do graphic design and web design and content writing and web copy and email marketing and just all that great stuff, just for me being willing to try. And that's kind of what happened with my second business that I started in 2017, which was Bond Small Business Group. Because, again, it went where I knew there was a need in my community. And I knew there was an affordable need in my community because there's a lot of places around here where there's like, okay, we'll promote your business and we'll help you, give you resources, but it's just like a ton of money. And a lot of my clients that I ran into, they're home-based businesses, or they're startups, or, you know, they're single parents, or they just got a lot going on. They just can't afford to do that. Even though they want it badly, they just couldn't afford it. And so that's kind of where the concept of bond came from, you know, where we can be a family, we can support each other, but we still know how to be professional, and we can still give each other those tools and resources. And so those are my two businesses currently. I do plan to have more, but that's what I'm working with right now. So
Wow. 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 So you started off simply for just having that feeling in your heart, like, I know what I want to do, but I'm not really sure where to flow with that. And I believe a lot of entrepreneurs, more so specifically a lot of writers, even myself, we go through that phase like, is this really, what I'm supposed to what I'm supposed to be doing? What really stood out to me was you just sharing about when you were let go from that company, who felt like you didn't write enough. And I will be honest, that's how I feel a lot sometimes, like, oh, maybe I should be writing more, I need to do this and that. But something I'm beginning to learn, and God is even sharing with me, is that again, you don't have to be perfect with it. Just come to him with what you have, and you will definitely showcase the increase. So what a phenomenal, phenomenal story. And just to
Mhm.
understand.
Kind of, that's just something I was gonna piggyback off of. You're talking about like it made you really reconsider and make you think like, is this cut out for me?
Mhm.
But even the ironic thing that happened like years later, they one of the editors came back and he had started his own company.
Hmm.
And he's like, well, I remember you from working back then, and I knew that you worked really hard and you were a good writer. And I'm just like, but y'all let me go, but you just never know how things can come full circle. So, even though things might not look good at the time, you never know how they'll come right back around.
That's true. That's real good. That's really good. Okay, okay, okay. So you have two businesses. You have JD Scribes and Bond. Wow,
Mm.
wow, wow. Okay, so let's see. Where do we go? There's so many questions. Okay, so how could I forget? So the other day I was just strolling, on Amazon. And I was like, let's see what Jessica's talking about with her new book. Oh my goodness. So I purchased it and here we are. I'm trying to get to the page, I'm trying to show people. Cause now nobody really walk around with and come on now. Come okay, I don't know why. But anyway, let me see if we can get the screen up on here at least. Come on. Come on. I just want you to show the screen here. Okay, you don't want to show the home page? All right, here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this looks so backwards. But we're gonna show it anyway. So this is Jessica. It wouldn't be me if it wasn't like this. Okay. So this is Jessica's new book, The Launching Calendar. Now, Jessica, I must say, like, you have again, always been a light to me. But when I saw this book, I was like, this girl ain't playing. She is serious. She's about to be like the next Oprah. Shoot, not even, she's like, she has these two businesses going on. Like 2016, you have a business. A year later, you're coming up with another one. And then you have a book that you're also working on. You have to tell us about this book and also the fact that we are up, it's not just the love month, but it's also the month of Black history. So can you just share a little bit about the lynching calendar and how that came to be? How that came to be? Tell us about it.
So, interestingly enough, I wrote the book originally when I was 17 also. So, all this stuff kind of started when I was 17.
Okay. That's the
I,
title of your next book, Jeff. When I'm 17, that's the title of your next book, girl. Okay, go ahead.
Because I remember I was in my statistics class, and I don't know what it was about statistics or my teacher, but I was always inspired to write in that class. And I got an A, like I passed it, but I'd had free time or something. I would just sit there and I'd write the story. And so, kind of what inspired the book, I've been doing genealogy since I was 10.
Wow,
And so, um,
not that.
And so there was a particular story of a cousin of mine. He had been lynched when he was 17. And just kind of reading the story and just thinking about, like what he was going through at the time or how his family felt. And just, reading articles because I remember one of the journalists who had written an article about it. This happened like maybe in the 40s, and she had written an article in like 2000, and people were sending her death threats
Wow.
still over this case. And so I was just, sitting in class thinking about all that stuff, and I'm just like, I wonder what he was thinking, when he knew they were doing that to him, or how his family felt. And so that's kind of what inspired me to write it. So I wrote his part first, and
Okay.
then I kind of expanded it into like his best friend and his brother, and then the lady that accused him. And then I was kind of got to thinking, I'm like, this probably, this is something that I could explore in other avenues and in other cases. So that's kind of how I expanded and I started writing other stories. And that's how the whole lynching calendar came to be.
Okay.
It wasn't something that, well, again, I did genealogy and my dad was a history buff. I read all the time. So it wasn't anything that I had to like really sit and do research for because I kind of already knew
Mhm.
the story. But it's kind of like it just came off kind of like a conveyor belt, like story after story just kind of came out. And I had wanted to publish earlier, but like, because I had written two manuscripts that year,
Mm. Oh,
and
wow.
I was trying to get the other one published first
Okay.
because I was like, no, Lynching Calendar is too strong, it's too much. Let me start off slow,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
but every time I tried to work on it, every time I tried to get it edited, I just couldn't get it done. And then my mom was finally like, well, maybe it's just not time. Maybe you need to try the other one. And I was just kind of, I don't know, do I want this to be my first one, because it's so heavy. But
Mhm.
then when I started on the process, it just went smooth. And
Wow.
so, okay, Lord, I hear you, And so that's kind of how it came to be. And I wound up, I officially published it on my cousin's birthday as kind of a way to celebrate him. And people that have read it, black, white, young, or old, they've all kind of been captured by some story. And a lot of people really were captured by his. But just any story in the book, it's like they know the characters and they just like, I just can't believe this happened. And why did they do this? And I'm like, those are questions we may never get, but hopefully this is kind of a way for them to speak and for people to hear their stories.
Wow. That is lovely. Yes, I recall reading the first chapter and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't, just like you said, like how can somebody, first it's just things we often really take for granted. A best friend and brother, they're together and hanging out all the time, and next thing you know, he's afraid to go to work, and then before you know it, he's like killed for no reason, all because of what somebody may be thinking. So I just commend you for that, Jess. Even just to bring out the raw, like just being raw in your story and sharing that to the public, because it's something that we always put under a rug. And so I definitely just want to put out a mini, just people, if you have not, go to Amazon. Y'all can buy everything else. If you can buy a cheeseburger, you can go on Amazon and get Jess's book, The Lynching Calendar. You will not regret it. And it's a very quick, easy read, and you will learn so much from it. So I definitely just want to again commend you for that, Jess. And thank you just for sharing like your story. It's one thing when you're talking about, someone else, but these situations have actually been impacted or connected with your family. So I commend you for doing that. Okay. So we're almost finished. I just want to just ask you. So a lot of people may be watching this and they're just like, man, Jessica's story. I know she shared like her struggles and what she's went through, but I don't know where to go with this. I don't even know if I still want to do this thing as an entrepreneur. I don't know where to go. So how would you inspire people who may be starting on a beginner's level or an intermediate level, or possibly they may be already an expert, but they just need some assistance or some guidance in moving forward with their calling? What would you say? What would be some tips that you would give, and even some practical tips, things that they probably can incorporate into their daily, day to day, guide, where, maybe they will be able to finally get to that mindset where they're just like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to carry out and carry out this call. So, what would be your final form of advice?
Well, the first thing I would say is, if you really feel like this is what God has for you, don't let go of that dream. Because, like I said, you're gonna go through times where you second guess yourself. and you feel like you're not going to get anywhere. But at the end of the day, that's what I had to hold on to. I knew this is what God wanted for me, and this is what I wanted. And so I had to know that I had to hold on to that, even if it felt like things weren't going my way. And then, like, as far as practical tips, I would say be open minded. Because, again, I thought I was just going to write creatively. Because I initially was like, okay, I'm just going to write a book. I didn't write a book until years later. And so, there might be times a company might approach you about a writing job or, like an editing gig or something like that. Don't be closed off to that. Be open and be willing to try. And even if it doesn't work out, you can always chalk it up as a lesson. Like, okay, I know I don't really like to write like that, or now I know what to do, with my next job. You know what I mean? And then another thing I would say is get your writing portfolio up. So even if you don't have a writing job, that doesn't mean that you can't still write. So even if you like, say you see, like a news story, try to write up your own mock news story. Like I said, start a blog because I had done that too. That'll kind of help you get your juices flowing. That'll get you out there a little bit, and that'll give you samples. So then, when you do have an opportunity to interview for a job, or somebody approaches you and wants samples, you can just refer them to your blog. You can give them your sample articles that you had written. So that way, you can always be ready, and you don't have to, worry about scrambling to find stuff when that time comes. And then, I guess lastly, just always be willing to learn because, even though I've been doing this for years, things change all the time. There's always something new, especially now with the way internet, has been and, just knowing how to properly write. There's a lot of people who don't know how to properly write or use grammar because, oh, I got autocorrect or, people don't know how to write anymore. So make sure that you hone your skills and you keep them up to date. And, that way, like I said, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So you're always going to be prepared. And, you'll always have that fire within you to continue to write because, if you don't use that gift, you can easily lose it. So just don't let it go.
Ah, I love it. Lovely, lovely, lovely said. Something that just stood out to me was just you saying not to let go of your dream. I was trying to like stroll and find the scripture, but I know it's there in the word. But that is something that we're always reminded to do is always hold on to that passion and what God has, equipped us with, and not letting that go, no matter what might come our way. So I just definitely want to end off of that note. And thank you again so much, Jess, for just sharing your story. Yay! I had a great, great, great time with you. Oh, I cannot let it go. So I remember with you sharing again with your book, there is I believe, a raffle that you're having. Can you share a little bit about that raffle so people who are possibly watching now, they can get a step into it and get the book? Tell us a little bit about that.
Again, in celebration of Black History Month, I'm having a giveaway. So I'm giving away 2 signed copies of my book. And I have a raffle copter. I'll attach the link. All you have to do is just kind of follow me, share Black History Month facts, and you'll get your entry. And the contest ends on February 15th. So once you get all your entries in, I'll pick a winner and I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And where would you be showcasing the winner?
Originally the first place I'll put it is on Facebook, but then I'll share it out to Instagram and Twitter too.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jess. And again, I wish you the best in your success. I know there's much more to come. And when that comes, I'll be interviewing you again. So excited for that. All right. Well, I will be seeing you next time. All right. And thank you all for coming on live. And we'll see you at the next episode of Real Talk, where we keep it raw, realistic, and relatable. All right. Bye.